Okay, so we're going to get stuck into some quadratics and finish off our factorizing here. So we're going to look at factorizing quadratics. So we should hopefully, I suppose, kind of know the general idea of what a quadratic is. A quadratic is an expression of this form. So it usually has a squared, an x part, and a number part. So that's kind of our distinctive way of recognizing a quadratic. So if we're kind of making notes, I suppose, of what we need to look out for, we're thinking kind of three terms. There's usually a squared, an x, and then a constant, what we call a constant. So the constant, obviously this part here is just the number part. We have then the coefficient of x. So the word coefficient just means the number in front of. So the number in front of x there, we usually say b for that, and the coefficient then of x squared is a then. And we have a few different words we're going to be using here. Now I've put down two different terms for us. The first one is called the target term. The target term we're going to consider to be the one in front of the x. Target term not as important as the second one we're going to look at here. The second one we're going to look at is the guide number, and the guide number is going to be, I suppose, the most important one here. And this is the one you really need to remember. The guide number in terms of our quadratics is the coefficient of x squared multiplied by the constant part. So in terms of our letters here, that's whatever's in front of x squared multiplied by the last number, the c part. And remember, the constant is the part on its own that has no x value. Now the guide number is very, very important. The target term is equally important, but you're going to see when we're doing these questions, we're going to be starting a lot with finding the guide number in all of the cases, and then using your target term where we talk about splitting the middle term, and that's kind of using our target term idea there. But the guide number really is the real one to really make sure you have that down. So looking quickly, I suppose if we just even talk through a few of these examples here. So identify the guide number and the target term. So in the first one here, the guide number, it's the coefficient of x squared multiplied by the constant. So that's 1. Remember, if there's no number in front of x squared, it's like having an invisible 1 there. So that's 1 multiplied by minus 12, which is just minus 12. My target term then, the middle number there, the 7. Same with the last one now. This time it's 3 multiplied by plus 7, giving me a plus 21. And the target term of minus 9. And see there, even when we're looking for target term, we're looking for guide number, we're taking those signs with us all the time as well. So it's not just minus 12, it's not just 12 for the first one, it's minus 12. Here the target term is not just 9, it's minus 9, negative 9. Same for the last one here. Then again, 4 multiplied by minus 8 gives me overall a minus 32 as my guide number there. My target term, then the plus 6 in the middle. So factorizing, I suppose here, if we're looking at identifying the guide number and the target term, then for each of these, same as the examples there. So say in the first one here, my guide number would be 1 multiplied by the minus 8, which is minus 8. If I do the one underneath, it'd be 2 multiplied by 11, which is 22, and so on and so forth, okay? Say we jump down to this last one here, it'd be 9 multiplied by minus 1, which is minus 9. Okay, so it's just following through all those points the whole way along there, and just making sure, as I'd say, that we're kind of somewhat familiar with finding the guide number and all that. So once we have that down, then we can get into the actual kind of nitty-gritty, I suppose, of factorizing our quadratics here. So the steps for factorizing our quadratics, and these are naturally important for you to learn off. So the first step is to find the guide number. So that's what we were looking at very quickly there. Finding the guide number, multiply the coefficient of x squared and the constant. Okay, the coefficient of x squared and the constant. And I put a note there as well, pay attention to the signs. It's going to be important that we take the signs there. Next step is going to be to list the factor pairs. So in terms of that, we mean listing just the pairs of factors, and again, paying attention to the signs in that as well. So if our guide number is positive, that means our factors are either both positive or both negative. If our guide number is negative overall, then our factor pairs are going to have differing signs. We're going to then identify which pair of factors will combine to give us the target term. Okay, and with that, I'm going to put down a little note here. We're thinking of splitting the middle term. Okay. The goal here is to split the middle term. And the reason we want to do that is because when we've split our middle term, we're splitting our question then into 4 terms instead of 3. And when we have 4 terms, we can do grouping or other type of factorizing. So that's kind of always our goal here as well. So even in heading into these questions, it's important that you go back over grouping as well, because you can see here step 5, factorize by grouping, and then 6, check by expanding. So we can check our answers by multiplying our answers out again, just to be sure that we're right in all cases. And like with any of these questions, when we can check it, it's always worth checking it. So let's just jump into some of these examples here. So we'll do a few examples and then we'll look at some of the questions then that come up with that as well. So factorize the following quadratic. So looking at the first example here, I need to start by finding my guide number. My guide number is the number in front of x squared multiplied by the constant term. So in this case, it's just 1 multiplied by 15, which is just 15. I now need to get the factor pairs of 15. So that's going to be 1 and 15, 2 and nothing, 3 and 5, and that's really all. I'll also have minus 1 and minus 15, and minus 3 and minus 5. Okay, I'm taking both options there because we can see 1 multiplied by 15 would give me 15, but so would minus 1 multiplied by minus 15. And notice how I'm paying particular attention here to the fact that these pairs have to give me a positive answer overall because my guide number is a positive 15. So now to decide which of them I'm going to be using, I look at the middle term. That was what we call that target term. And I see which of those pairs would give me 8 if I added them together. And it's going to be the plus 3 and the plus 5 in this case. So now taking my question again, it's x squared plus 8x plus 15. And I'm going to do what we were saying earlier, talk about splitting the middle term. And I'm going to split it out into 3x plus 5x. Okay, so you can see there we're using those two factor pairs, those two factors that we came up with, that factor pair, and we're splitting out the 8 into 3x plus 5x. And once we've got 4 terms now, we're able to do grouping. So grouping requires us to take our question in 2 parts and to factorize appropriately there. So in the first stage, I can see they have a common factor of x, leaving me with x plus 3, and in the second go, a common factor of 5, again leaving me with x plus 3. So overall, I get x plus 5, x plus 3. Okay, our grouping part, we should hopefully be fairly familiar with to some extent. If you're not, that's something to go back over, but making sure you can finish out the last few steps of that one there. So really our new part here is this first kind of first few steps here. So finding your guide number and using that then to split the middle term. Let's look at the next example here. So again, start with my guide number. Again, there's a 1 in front of the x squared multiplied by the minus 12 here at the end. So making sure that we note that that's going to give me a guide number of minus 12. So starting with my factors, it's 1 and minus 12. I could do 2 and minus 6. I could do 3 and minus 4. I could also do minus 1 and 12, minus 2 and 6, and minus 3 and 4. So to decide which of these pairs I'm going to be doing, I once again look at my middle term. And this time my middle term, it's a minus 4. So which of my pairs would combine to give me that? Well, it would be the 2 minus 6. And again, you can check that with your calculator if you're unsure. 2 take away 6 gives you a minus 4 overall, because the bigger number is a negative. So taking my question as before, x squared minus 4x minus 12, I'm going to be splitting the middle term. So it'll be x squared plus 2x minus 6x minus 12. Again, factorizing by grouping, so I'm taking them in 2 parts there. So doing the first part here gives me this bracket here, and doing the second part, well, looking at the second question now, it's minus 6x minus 12, so I can see straight away in terms of the factor number I'm going to be getting, it's going to be a 6. And also I want what's inside the bracket to match what's inside the other bracket. So I'm going to take that negative sign with me as well. So I'm going to take the minus 6. And in fairness, that's a generally fairly kind of consistent rule to do there. If there's a negative in front of your x there, I would say 9 times out of 10 you would be taking that negative with you there. So minus 6x divided by minus 6 leaves me with x. Minus 12 divided by minus 6 gives me a plus 2, which I know is correct because it matches the other bracket that I have here. And that was one of our key parts for grouping there. And I get my 2 factors, x minus 6, x plus 2. Okay, let's run through a few more of these examples here then. So next one, again, starting off the same, well, let's find our guide number. So the number in front of x squared by the last number. So 9 times 1, so it's a plus 9. Factor pairs are 1 and 9, 3 and 3, minus 1 and minus 9, and minus 3 and minus 3. I need to get 6 in the middle, which is going to be 3 and 3. So again, splitting out as before, 9x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 1. In this case, I'm going to be factorizing out as before, but this time it's not just going to be x, I can actually take a 3x here. So 3x divides into 9x squared and it divides into 3x, leaving me with 3x plus 1. And in the second bracket, all that I can factor out there, all that the 3x and 1 have in common is just 1. It leaves me with 3x plus 1. I know I'm correct because that matches up with the other bracket, and I get 3x plus 1, 3x plus 1. Okay, two brackets matching each other. It's an example of what we actually call a perfect square equation. Okay, let's look at the last one here again, same as before. Guide number 4 multiplied by minus 12. You can see we're doing the same steps every time here. Minus 48, so I'm expecting there'll be a fair few factors here. 2 and minus 24, 3 and minus 16, 4 and minus 12, 5, no, 6 and minus 8. And I can also take the other side of those as well. Okay, so for a lot of these questions now, if you come across the factor you want to use fairly early on, then obviously you don't have to continue on and list all the factors out. It's just kind of habit for me here, I suppose, to some extent. So we're looking to get minus 13. That's going to be the 3 and minus 16 here that we had near enough at the top of the question. So let's go again. 4x squared, minus there, minus 13x minus 12. We're splitting out the middle term there, so 4x squared minus plus 3x minus 16x minus 12. So looking at 4x squared and 3x, all that they have in common there is just x. So I get 4x plus 3 minus 16 and minus 12. Well, they have 4 in common, so I'll take the minus with me as well. So 4x plus 3. So I get x minus 4 and 4x plus 3. Okay, as my factors overall there. Okay, so we can look at some of these questions then. I have some practice questions here. We might just pick one or two of them to go, because really once we've looked at all of those examples there, it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same steps happening all the time here. So we'll just pick one or two of them maybe to have a quick look at. So let's just look at 3x squared plus 5x plus 2 there. So again, start off by finding my guide number. That's 3 multiplied by 2, which is 6. I get the factors of 6. 1 and 6 and 2 and 3, minus 1 and minus 6, minus 2 and minus 3. I need to get a 5 in the middle there, so it's going to be the 2 plus 3. So 3x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 2. It doesn't matter which order you put those factors in when you put them into the equation. Factoring out 2 here, x plus 1, so I get 3x plus 2, x plus 1. Let's jump down maybe to some of these later ones here as well. Looking for one with maybe a negative there. So let's do 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Again, my guide number there, 4 times 9 is 36, of course. So 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. But I also have to take the negatives of each of those. So I could have minus 1 and minus 36, minus 2 and minus 18, minus 3 and minus 16, minus 4, minus 9, minus 6, minus 6. Now I want to get an overall answer of minus 12 in the middle, so it's going to be minus 6 and minus 6. So 4x squared minus 6x plus 9. I can take out 2x here, leaving me with 2x minus 3. And again, here I can take out minus 3, which is going to leave me with 2x minus 3. So another instance where we're getting the same bracket both times here. But you can see I'm kind of flying through some of these questions here, but once we break it down, a lot of the steps are coming out to be the same the whole way along. Let's just look at one more little twist or type that we could have here, which is just this extra part of factorize fully. And in this case, if we look at it, it does resemble a quadratic. Okay, we have 3 terms. We have a squared part, but we also have a cubed part here, the number 3 in the power. So I think looking at this one here, I can't immediately go quadratic because it's not squared x number as we normally see it. So I have to think of my other types of factorizing, and really all I can do here is a highest common factor. So we look across and see what they have in common, and I can see there's an x there. So I could factorize out an x and get 4x squared plus 7x plus 3. And if we look at what's left on the inside here, this is a quadratic. Okay, what's left on the inside there is a quadratic. So I actually can't stop here yet. I have to continue. So I find my guide number 4 by 3 gives me 12. Factors of 12, 1 and 12, 3 and 4, or sorry, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I'm going to be taking 3 and 4 this time because I can see straight away it's going to be positive because it has to add up to plus 7. So let's continue this. You can see the way I'm keeping the x on the outside there. And also I've decided there to put them in a particular order because I think looking at this, that's going to make the sum as easy as possible for me It's going to give me the easiest possible kind of sum to do there. So 4x plus 3 and x plus 1. So you can see there a little added twist to that one because we had to factorize beforehand. But noting as well that the x I factorized out has stayed consistent throughout the question and has stayed at the end of the question. So making sure in that sort of example that you don't get rid of the x there. Now there's one more other little twist that we have with quadratics, and I will preface this one with, if you are happy enough with what we've done so far, you can absolutely leave it there. You do not need to jump into ones like this. But this is just a particular special case where the leading coefficient is 1. That was kind of like the ones we started with. So where maybe it's like, where it's something like this, x squared plus x minus 6, where we just have a leading coefficient of 1. So what we can do with these ones is start off the same as normal. Find the guide number, list the factor pairs, find the pair that would give you the target term that we could split the middle term. But what's actually going to happen here, or the difference, comes in at this part here. We can actually open our brackets and just fill in the two factors into that space there, keeping the signs that they have. So you can see that in this example here. Okay, if my guide number is -6 and I want them to add together to give me a 1, well, that's going to be here, the -2 and the +3. And you can see that when we go down to the brackets here, it's -2 and it's +3. So it's just a little slightly quicker way of doing these sorts of questions. So say here x squared plus 7x plus 12. I would start off as normal, get my factor pairs of 12. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I'm going to stop there because I know it's going to be 3 and 4 because it has to give me +7. And I can actually, instead of splitting that middle term, I can simply write down x plus 3, x plus 4. Okay, similarly, if I go a little bit further down, say we do this one here, I'm going to get the factor pairs of -20, so -1 and 20, -2 and 10, -4 and 5, 1 and -20, 2 and -10, 4 and -5. I need to get a -1 in the middle there, so it's going to be 4 minus 5, and I can jump straight to the end and say x plus 4, x minus 5 is going to be my answer overall there. So just important to note with those ones there, it only applies to questions where the coefficient of x squared is 1. If the coefficient is not 1, you have to do them out the full way, as we did in these earlier examples and those few earlier questions that we did. So this way, this earlier way, this will always work. And the second way we looked at here will only work if the coefficient is 1. So just to be aware, but it's something that might help you, that might speed you along with some of these later questions. So definitely something to look over there. You can see how we're building all along factorizing here. We're building the different types of factorizing that we have. So we did our highest common factor, we did our grouping, we did a difference of two squares. Now we're looking at quadratics, but we're using highest common factor, we're using grouping, we're building on what we've been using the whole time there. So just making sure you're happy with there, finding your guide number, finding your target term, splitting the middle term, all of those little aspects to your quadratics. They're really important as we move forward.